Chess.com recently put out 5 zombie themed chess bots, and in this video I'm going to try to beat every single one of them. In doing so, I'm going to try to make it as educational as possible because I think the highest rated bot is around 1800, so for any of you rated under 1800 should be able to take something away from it. But before I start, I'm going to make a couple of announcements regarding the channel, so if you're only interested in the chess, then you can just skip ahead from the timestamps given below. So about the channel, well, I'm back. As you can see, I had a surgery, but it's nothing to worry about. What's important is for the last 3 weeks I've been putting out very short videos because those were pre-recorded videos, as you can make out from my hairstyle. So I just recorded all of them at once and scheduled them till yesterday so I don't have to record any while I'm undergoing surgery. But starting from this Monday, my videos should go back to the normal medium length videos and they should be much more interesting than the ones that I've been putting out for the past 3 weeks. And also my editor is back from the Himalayas, so that helps. Now one more thing, my experimental phase of the channel is coming to an end after the first 2 months, so I'm gonna make an announcement regarding the direction of where I see this channel going in the future. So that should be up next Wednesday or next Friday. The video will be titled I made 60 videos in 60 days and here's what I learned. So stay tuned for that. And now getting back to the chess. So those of you who skipped, I underwent a surgery today and I am under heavy sedation. So in case I make any blunders or stupid moves, I have my excuse ready that the sedation is still at work. But I think that will make the challenge a bit more interesting. So here I'm at the chess.com website and I have not logged in. I'll just click on play computer. So these are the 5 zombies that everyone is talking about. This one is Zombanny. That's, I think, Danny Wrench. This is Zotez. That's, of course, one of the Botas sisters. It's Alexandra Botas, okay. Then there's Zombiano. That's Fabiano. There's Zombiachtchi. That's Nepomniachtchi. And there's Zombaru. That's, of course, Hikaru. That's the final boss that we're going to face today. So let's get started with the 400 rated zombie first. Let's choose it. Let's play as random challenge. And let's play. Okay, so I was going to be as educational as possible. So let's just apply to E4 with E5. Basically, we want to control as much of the center as possible in the beginning of the game. Zombanny develops this knight, attacks our pawn, so we can just defend it with our knight. Now I think if you don't know any opening theory, the threat of this move is the zombie wants to take my knight and then win the pawn once the knight stops defending the pawn. I'm not too afraid of that, but let's just defend our pawn. So right, so the zombie is trying to open up the center because it's very close to being castled, so its king is going to be safe, but my king may not be as safe. Although I don't really mind, honestly. So I'm just gonna make this trade because there's nothing wrong with it, and I'm just gonna defend my knight because it's attacked twice now. So the zombie is developing its pieces. As you know, in the beginning of the game, you want to bring as many pieces that you have towards the center of the board and away from the back rank, and you want to get the king castled. Something that I'm going to try to do as well. I'll develop my knight. Okay, so here's an interesting point. So I can take this bishop with my bishop or with the pawn. Usually what you want to do is not trade a bishop for a knight, although at the 400 level I don't think any of that matters. What matters is a bishop is worth 3 points and a knight is worth 3 points. So you just want to make a trade. I don't mind taking it with either, but I'm just gonna take it with the pawn because I have my own reasons. I mean, I get this open file, I get more pawns towards the center, and I save my bishop. Alright, so let's develop my last minor piece. I can go ahead and castle my king. Okay, so Zombanny is doing something weird over here, but I don't think that concerns me a lot. I think what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna attack the queen. There's not much of a meaning to this move, but let's just do it for the sake of it. Okay, so quick calculation. So my pawn was taken because my bishop stopped defending the pawn. So, I mean, in a sense, I missed that. And now my bishop is attacking the queen and this knight is attacking my queen. So if I take here, this knight will take my queen, and then if I take the knight, my bishop will be captured, and at the end of the day I will be down 1 pawn because the knight captured this pawn over here. So maybe what I'd want to do is after the knight captures my queen, what I'll do is I'll take this pawn over here. And yeah, I think that should work out pretty well because if the rook comes here, I can just take the knight and then he can just take my bishop, and at the end of the day, it's an even trade and I'm quite happy at the end of it. So let's just go ahead with it. Oh, okay. Okay, so this is a 400 level bot and it's gonna make some inexplicable moves, but no mercy. So let's just move my queen out of the way, I guess. Okay, that was weird. Okay, so the rook is hanging and the knight is hanging. I don't think I need to explain this game any further. I think I'll just go ahead and take the knight. Not taking the rook, by the way, because this attacks the knight. So now the knight has to move and the rook is still hanging. So now I can take the rook. And that's a move. But this pawn is hanging. Okay, now everything is hanging and I just basically destroyed the entire place. Okay, let's just bring my queen back to safety. Not sure. I guess I'll just bring my knight to the attack. There's no fork here because my my bishop can take the pawn. And now, one of the most important things at beginner level play is the fact that if you're up material, which I am, I have an extra queen and an extra rook and an extra minor piece and an extra pawn, I think. No, the pawns are equal. But I am up, I think, 15 points of material, right? So I want to trade down as much as possible, because let's suppose that I have 10 points worth of material and my opponent has 4 points worth of material. That is a very big difference compared to if my opponent has 32 points worth of material and I have 36. Even though the difference is 4, the ratio is much higher if both the numbers are smaller. If that does not make sense, just remember that if you're up material, try to trade as many pieces as you can. So I'm just trading down. And of course, the zombie does not take my knight. So I'm just gonna try and save my knight. I mean, there's nothing that the zombie can do. Even if it pushes, I don't think there's any breakthrough over here that concerns me. So I'm just gonna bring my knight to safety. Okay, I'm gonna take this free pawn. Okay, this is quite easy. I'm gonna attack the rook. And I'm gonna take the free rook. And I probably could have done something much better, but I can't really be bothered. So here's another very interesting thing that you can do. If you're up an overwhelming amount of material, either go on an all-out attack, or what you can do is you can give up your bishop for a couple of pawns, which I will be doing in this case. And for some reason the computer is not going to take it, so I'm going to take another free pawn with check, and I'm going to go here threatening the knight and threatening all sorts of checkmates, and the knight was saved but the checkmate was not, and the game ends. Okay, so this was quite easy. I hope that the other bots are going to be much more difficult. Let's go to the next bot. Okay, so this bot is Alexandra Botas, and let's begin. Let's go with e4. Let's attack the pawn. Pawn is defended. I'm gonna put pressure on the f7 pawn. Okay, so if you've seen Agat Matow's channel, he loves this move b4 in this position. This is called the Evans Gambit. Okay, so this is something I've not seen ever. So I can take the bishop, but then my bishop will be taken. I don't see anything wrong with that. But if I take the pawn and my pawn is taken, I think the same motif of the Evans Gambit still applies. And this time basically it'll be without a pawn sacrifice, so I think it's worth it. Right, so here there are a couple of things I can do. So first of all, I can just do my usual Evans Gambit sort of thing where I play c3 and then d4, or I can damage the pawn structure here and instead of going for an aggressive game, go for a more possessional kind of a game where I take this knight, there's a double pawn here, then I can take this pawn, and that won't really be winning of a pawn because of this move, but it's a choice. Maybe what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna attack the bishop and then see where the bishop goes. And okay, I am definitely overthinking. It's an 800 level bot. It's just gonna hang pieces all over the place every 3 moves. So now that I'm up material, I'm just gonna trade down, and it doesn't even take my bishop, so I'm gonna take more free stuff, and I'm gonna bring my bishop back to safety. I'm gonna bring my king to safety. There's nothing over here. I don't really care about this because I'm up material, so I don't mind trading down. I'm gonna align this guy over here. Play this pawn move, just a random attacking move basically. So here I'm just not thinking. I'm just playing random moves and looks like I'm winning. So not really gonna think much about it. I'm putting pressure on this pawn over here. So if the queen ever moves, I can just capture this pawn. Let's continue development. Queen moved, but it's still defending the pawn. I'm gonna attack the rook. The queen stopped defending the pawn, so I can take the rook, but I'm gonna put in this intermezzo where I just check the king and the king has to move somewhere, and now I can take the rook without any repercussions. And at the end of the day, I am just up 2 rooks, a bishop, and we have even pawns. I think I have 7 pawns and Botas has 6, so I'm even up a pawn. So let's just simplify into an endgame. Let's trade down. Okay, and my bishop is taken. So now there are a couple of things that I can do. I can A, consolidate, or B, I can go on an attack. I think I showed how to consolidate in the last video, so I'm gonna go on an attack on this one. So here my knight goes, and okay, so here's an interesting thing. So now I can go on an all-out attack, and that is a completely reasonable thing to do. But my opponent has 12 points worth of pieces if you ignore the pawns. So if I just remove the queens from the board, my advantage is going to be so overwhelming that there's pretty much no way that I will mess it up even if I'm an extremely low-rated player, right? So I can try to trade queens by playing queen to e6. The king will have to move because it was in check and my queen cannot be captured nor could this be blocked. And now my queen opens up to the king, and so I can just take here with check. King takes that back, and now at the end of the day I'm up a bishop and 2 rooks. So this should be pretty easy now. So now this is a reasonably solid pawn structure. So what I want to do is I want to break this pawn structure. Usually the way you break pawn structures is you aim at the base of the pawn chain. So here the base of the pawn chain is this pawn or this pawn. So maybe getting to this pawn will be slightly easier by my knight, I guess. My knight can come to this square by going to f3, from f3 to h4, from h4 to f5, and then it'll put pressure on this pawn. So let's form that maneuver. Okay, so you could have stopped me by playing this move and sacrificing a pawn, but doesn't matter. Okay, I don't really care about my pawns at this point. I'm just gonna boot this knight even if another pawn falls. I'm gonna boot the knight again. Oh, when the knight does not get booted, it attacks my knight, but I love trades at this point, so I'm happy to trade down and get a couple of pawns and a few more pawns. And now the simplest way to win such a position is to promote my pawn and then just checkmate with a queen. So that's what I'm gonna do. Let's just trade down as much as I can before I go ahead and do that. And let's go move forward. Now I don't really care about my rook, but just to be safe I'm gonna save my rook and then promote my pawn. And now I could always end up stalemating my opponent. So every single move I make from this point on, I'm gonna make sure that the opponent has legal moves. So as long as there are pawns, there's not much of an issue because the pawns can always move forward even if the king has no moves forward. So I'm gonna promote to queen. So now there's lots of ways to checkmate the king, but I think this is the cleanest. So I'm just gonna check here and bring another piece into the attack, defend my rook. This match I made 0 mistakes, 0 blunders and 0 missed wins, so I think my sedation is wearing off a little bit. Both of these were reasonably easy bots to beat. I think the only thing that I tried to do in these games was not be overly aggressive. I just remained somewhat solid. I tried to minimize the amounts of blunders that I make and figure out whenever my opponent is making a blunder, which is very often for these bots for some reason. And whenever they made a blunder, I just took 3 pieces. That's all I did. By blunders at this level, it just means hanging pieces. So let's move on to the next bot. Now the challenge should increase slightly, especially now that bot is themed after Fabiano. We can play the London system because, well, every chess YouTuber plays the London system, so I could try doing that as well. And I've played the London system, honestly. So I think you develop the bishop now. And I think once you're around the rating of 1000 on chess.com, you should learn some sort of system opening. Something like the London system is pretty good. So whenever I teach somebody chess, I think I ask them to try out London system first because, you know, it keeps you solid, ensures that you don't make blunders in the first 15 moves of the game as long as you don't get your bishop trapped and so on. And you can wait for the opponent to make blunders and capitalize on them, and then just, you know where the pieces go irrespective of what the opponent does in most cases. So unless your central pawn is challenged on the first move, it's a reasonably easy setup to make where you make a triangle of pawns. So let's complete the triangle, although it's not the best move order, but let's do that. You complete the triangle of pawns with the bishop outside the pawn chain, and then you develop your 2 knights. Once you do that, you have this pyramid of pawns which becomes the home for your bishop over here. I mean, there's lots of places the bishop can go to. Okay, so now my bishop is attacked. So technically what I want to do in this position is castle, but my bishop is under attack, so shouldn't really castle. I'll just bring my bishop to safety. And now there are lots of moves that I can make. Ideally what I want to do is, I would really love to sack over here, but there's not a very good follow-up that I can manage to see. It doesn't really matter at this level, but let's be solid, let's develop good habits. I could castle now, but the pawns over here are really advanced, so I think I'm just gonna make an extremely slow move just to give my bishop some space over here. And now I can develop my queen somewhere. I think I'm gonna develop it to, I mean, I could develop it to c2, but this battery is not really going anywhere, so there's no point of doing that. I think I'm gonna develop to b3, because the queen cannot really be booted from here very easily without, making these overcommitments with the pawns. And now I can just move back. Now there's no issue. Opponent is extremely underdeveloped, so I think there's no issues. I can just castle here, because I don't really see a way for the opponent to attack. I mean, the second that they push h5, g5 is going to be weak. And now comes the next phase. Now that I'm done with the opening, what I want to do is I want to think about what kind of a plan I can make in the middle game. So right now what I want to do is I can expand in the center over here. So let's just do that. I'll expand in the center, because usually the rule of thumb in chess is if the opponent is attacking on the flanks, you want to attack in the center. And as you can see, my opponent has been playing on both flanks quite a bit. This move makes no sense to me. As you can see, my king is much safer than my opponent's king, because my opponent pushed a lot of pawns in front of his king, and at lower levels, especially at 1000 level, you don't really want to do that if there's no good reason for that. So what I want to do is I want to open up the position as much as I can, so that this king's vulnerability is exploitable, whereas my king is not vulnerable at all. So here I'm trying to open up the position as much as possible. Now here I can do a couple of things. I can try to save my bishop, because usually at 1000 level you'll start to realize that you may prefer bishops a little more than your knights, at least in games that are not very fast paced like this one. So what you may want to do is you may want to move your bishop back in such situations. That's a possibility. Or I can just go ahead and shred open the position. So by the way, you don't really win a pawn as far as I can tell, because if you take here and the bishop is taken and you say that haha, I have an intermediate move and I take this extra pawn attacking the queen and the rook, the knight has a check on e2, and then I'll have to capture the knight, and then my pawn can be captured. But okay, so I am winning a pawn. Okay, so let's just do that. I mean, that is if my bishop is taken. So now I have all the time in the world to save my bishop, so I'll do that. Although this diagonal is not great for the bishop, but who cares? So now rook's on the open file. Now it's always a question which rook goes to the open file. I think there's not much that's going to go on the queen side, so I'm going to bring my queen side rook to the center. My pawn is being attacked, and there's a couple of ways I can defend it, but I think I'm just going to move it forward. Now that does leave a lot of weak squares here, but at this level I don't think you need to worry about what that means. So now this rook is extremely stupid, first of all. So for that reason, if I start trading my inactive pieces for the active pieces of the opponent, for example, my knight is much less active compared to this knight. If I just play this move and we make a trade, I think I'll be happy. Okay, so here's a very nice thing that I can do. I can just blindly capture this knight. That's a completely reasonable thing to do, and maybe there's some tactical follow-up that helps me quite a bit when I do that. But I think a better move would be to fork this bishop and this queen, because, well, I like my bishops more than my knights, and this position I think can easily open up, so bishops will be more valuable than knights. So I'm just gonna fork these two pieces, and of course the queen has to move. Now I can just take the bishop right away. That's a completely valid option, but I don't think that's really necessary at this point. And the reason I say that is, look at this. If the bishop moves anywhere from this place, then my rook is just simply gonna take the queen, and that's not a very good trade. So I think I'm gonna put pressure on this bishop a little more before I capture it. Maybe I'll be able to win a pawn when I do that. Okay, so the knight jumps in, but I don't really see where the knight is going from this point, so I don't really care. Now I can take this bishop, the pawn will capture and my bishop will capture, and at the end of the day I'll be up a pawn, and there's not much that the opponent will have gained. So let's just do that. And this comes with check, and now there's all sorts of nasty discoveries that I can do. By nasty discoveries, what I mean is my rook is lined with the queen and the bishop is in the middle, so wherever I move my bishop, my rook will be attacking the queen. So if I just simply capture this pawn, for example, and start attacking this knight, there's not much that my opponent can do in terms of saving this knight, because you'll have to save this queen as well. I mean, maybe you can defend this knight with the queen somehow. Maybe you can bring the queen over here, but then at the end of the day I'll be up 2 pawns, right? So I don't really care. And my opponent blunders a queen. Okay, I'll take that. And now Usually, one of the ways that people often lose such positions is if you let the opponent rooks infiltrate your position. So in that case, even if you are up a couple of pawns, it's not a very happy place to be in, because you know the rooks can always attack your second or seventh rank, and then they can trap your king, and maybe they can even checkmate your king. So what you want to do is you want to block this way, even if it is at the expense of a pawn. You just want to block this file, and you want to make as many trades as possible. So in this case, I'll take the bishop, so that comes with check, and the knight would probably take. I can take this. So now there's a lot of moves that I can make. I don't really see where this knight is going. I mean, the knight can come here and check my king if my queen stops defending the square, so I need to take care of that. I can't simply boot out this knight, because once I move my g pawn, my h pawn will be hanging. So I guess what I'm gonna do is simply gonna move my pieces forward slowly. I'm up 3 points of material. Basically, I have a queen for a rook and a knight, and I have a couple of extra pawns. Okay, so I have a pretty good move over here. So I can attack the rook by moving my queen to d4, and wherever the rook moves, I don't really care, because my pawn can be pushed forward with check, and then once the king moves somewhere, I can bring my queen all the way down to d7. That will defend my pawn, which will be on e6 at that point. It will attack this rook and maybe even check the king, I don't know, depending on where the king goes. And I'll be able to march this pawn forward. Oh, but there's an obvious flaw in this calculation. What if the rook comes here, or at the end of the day, even the knight and the rook will be eyeing the square? So maybe it's not as simple, but I think I will attack this rook nonetheless. And as you might expect, even the 1000 level bot makes a blunder, hangs a piece in one move, and now it's just a matter of cleaning up. I'm just gonna take all of the pawns that I get, just gonna take all of the pawn. And at this point, one of the things that I can do is march one of my pawns forward. But let's just say that I'm extremely low on time. I'm playing on time and I'm extremely low on time. What I'm gonna do in such a situation is I'm just gonna bring my queen here. Even if the rook can take my queen, at the end of the day, once I take back, I have a rook for a knight, and I have a lot of extra pawns, and I have this extremely strong pass pawn over here. So I'm just gonna push it forward, I'm gonna defend it, and then I'm gonna bring its friend forward, and that should be it. I guess before I do that, I'm gonna bring my rook forward. I'm just gonna take a couple of free pawns here. Take this free pawn. And I'm not sure why this pawn was not taken on one of the previous moves, but well, now I can just defend it. Now I can just move the other pawn forward, attack the knight here, move the pawn forward. Now the knight will have to give itself up, or you can let me have a queen and get checkmated. So apparently I made 2 blunders here. I don't know what the blunders were, but let's just move on to the next pawn now. Okay, so let's play Nepo. I'm gonna play a lot quicker this time, so birds opening, very interesting. I'm gonna go ahead and do the King's Indian defense sort of thing. This is a Pierce Austrian with a very weird queen move for some reason. I don't really understand this move, but okay. So I can bring my knight here, but then it'll just be booted out. So I can bring my knight back. That's another option. But yeah, I think I don't mind getting booted around. I'll castle. Yeah, got booted around as expected. And I get this free square now. And I can undermine this structure because there's not much happening. I don't really need to take this right away, although even taking is completely fine. Actually, taking is a good idea, isn't it? I'll take here, and the reason I'm doing that is because this diagonal opens up, and now that the diagonal is open, I think I'm gonna trade queens. There are lots of good moves actually. I can go here, I can go here. I think I'm already winning, am I not? Doesn't that just hang a fork here? It does, right? Or am I missing something? Yeah, I don't think I was missing anything. It's just free exchange, or maybe even a free rook if my knight is somehow able to escape that place. So now it's time to cocoon. Let's develop first as quickly as possible. Not entirely sure what the best square is. Maybe this one. So this square is sort of secured. Nepo was a lot easier than I thought it would be. So now my knight is attacked, so I need to move it. My queen is attacked, so I need to move it because I don't think I can block it very effectively. Maybe I'll go here and I'll come here. I mean, I know I'm self-pinning myself, but well, it is what it is. Let's go here. Let's try to untangle a little bit. There's lots of ways now that I can untangle. I think the simplest one is to try to trade some rooks off. which my opponent of course won't allow me to do. Yeah, I think I'll just escape with my knight then. The rook defends it, so even if the knight is pinned over here. Okay, so that's not ideal. I see what is being done here. So what I'll do is I'll give this check, basically trading down as much as I can. And now I'll just have to move my queen out of this pin, but this is not really a fork. Yeah, let's just go for this idea then. Okay, so it was a nice. So now I can of course take this pawn 50. I'm just trying to find if there's something that's slightly better, you know, something like developing my rook, for example, because I'm up a piece and a rook, although I will probably lose back the piece. Okay, I may not actually lose the piece because this rook is not defended over here, right? So I can just go here. I'm gonna go here. Yeah, I'm just doing my best to entangle at this point. Anyway, I'm still up a rook. I think that counts for something. Okay, so now on to the next phase of the game. The queen can take this pawn whenever it wants to. So let's just defend the pawn, I guess. Let me take this pawn over here. I can align my queen with the king. The issue is this move. I can boot out the queen, but I mean the queen is kind of trapped, so I don't really want to get involved with it for a while. I mean, it's serving me quite a good purpose that queen doesn't really have much to do. I guess what I'll do is I'll just attack the rook and get my queen into the action. I can just take this pawn now. I'm not entirely sure if it's worth taking a pawn at this stage of the game. Maybe I should go for an attack. Yeah, I think targeting this pawn is a better idea because there's not a very good way that white can defend it. So I think I'm gonna go for this pawn over here. And now I can take it. I think the simplest thing to do would be to do this. Attack the queen, block the bishop. That should be a free bishop, I think, even though I'm scared of this pawn over here. So that makes me wonder how I should take this bishop. So if I take it with the queen, this queen will take over here, and then basically the queen will have infiltrated, and I won't be able to take this pawn back. If I take with the bishop, I think that's slightly better, because then I can always take this pawn over here, and there's no threat. So let's take with the bishop, and take this with the rook. Whoa! I messed up. I have no idea why I did that. Wow. Okay. Interesting. Anyway, so the reason I did that, this cannot be taken because the bishop is pinned to the queen. So basically lost an exchange though, despite anything and everything. At the end of the day, I was able to trade down. Now I don't think there's much of a way that I can lose this game at all. I guess what I'm gonna do is have a little bit of... Okay, instead of having a little bit of fun, let's just get this over with. Collect the pawn or collect the rook. And now to ensure that there's no stalemate, what I'm gonna do is I'm just gonna cut off the king. I'm gonna take away the pawn. Just gonna cut off the king a little further. And I'm gonna defend my bishop, defend my rook here. So now there's no way that any of my pieces can attack these places for now. So the king will always have some moves. I'll just now indefinitely block this pawn like this. And now I can just push this pawn to victory. That's simple. And here I go. And just for bad manners, I'll promote to a rook with checkmate. Okay, so that was Nepo. Definitely more of a challenge compared to the other ones because there were very few pieces that were dropped without compensation, and I also made a couple of blunders. Oh, I made 4 blunders and 3 mistakes over there. I'm totally off my game today. But anyway, we have the final challenge, the final boss. Let's do the same King's Indian, because that served us a good deal. So there's a Trumpowski attack by Hikaru, and I think I don't really mind that. So now let's just keep on developing. Let's just develop my knight to the square. There's not much that the bishop can do to me. Okay, interesting. So I think I'm gonna develop it to this square then. Unless you play f4 for some reason, I have no idea why you're pushing all of these pawns, because I think this does more harm than good for your position. So just gonna make this some sort of a backward spawn and attack it. Nowhere that the knight can really jump. I can just go here and attack this pawn, so you'll have to push something, or you can just give up a pawn. And you can give up another pawn, I suppose. Isn't that another free pawn for me? Yeah, I suppose it is. And I can attack this pawn now. Okay, so Hikaru has been quite easy so far. I am in a better position. I have 2 extra pawns. I think what I can do at this point in the game, I can of course plop my knight over here, and that will be an amazing square for my knight. I think I'm trying for something a little more immediate. So there are no real threats right now because there's no dark squared bishop for my opponent. A lot of my pawns near my king are on light squares, so it's not an issue either. So I think what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna go after this pawn, and there's not much of a way that this pawn can be defended any further, right? I mean, you can play rook here, but who would do that? I think I'll develop my bishop first. Okay. I think I'm gonna still attack this bishop. Left my rook. Okay, that is a weird move. I don't really see what this knight is doing over here, so I guess I'll just move back. Move my queen up here. Double up. So now I'm attacking this knight. Let's just keep putting pressure. Okay, so that's interesting. Now I have a lot of very decent moves to play because there's this spin sort of thing going on, so I can just, I don't know, exploit that somehow, I guess. There's a lot of pressure on this knight. Exploiting that is an option as well. One of the things that I'm thinking I can do is I can just take this pawn, right? Because then when the knight takes, that knight will be pinned. Because the knight is pinned, I can just trade everything down. Basically, I take here, you take back with the knight, because otherwise you're just losing the pawn. I take here, you take with the knight, if you don't want to lose everything basically. And then I can just put in more pressure on the knight by coming here. You can defend like this, I can come here, and there's no way you can defend it, right? Fair enough. This should work. This should work. And now I can just come here, put pressure on the pinned piece. And here's the interesting thing. I can of course take with the bishop. That is always an option. And at the end of all of it, I'll be up, what, 3 pawns? That's always an option. I can also take with the queen. And I understand that there's this threat of a check. But then I can defend like this. And I am sort of putting pressure on this knight with checkmate. And on these pawns over here. So even if the queen tries to go and collect these pawns, I mean, it's just unnecessary counterplay, I suppose, which I don't really want to give my opponent. So I think I'll take with the bishop and I'll just go all the way back. Okay, so middle game phase of the game is over. I have a lot of extra pawns. I have 3 extra pawns to be precise. My king is slightly more safe compared to my opponent. This is a very nice advanced pawn. So what I want to do right now is try to trade off queens if I can. Because if that happens, I win by default basically. But that's not a very easy thing to achieve because this pawn, which is defended by the knight, which is defended by the queen, is blocking my path over here. So all what I can do is I can just come here, right? So there's not much of an infiltration the queen can do really, right? I mean, the queen can come all the way here, but that's it. And there's always this back rank mate that I'm threatening, and this knight is sort of loose. So I think going on an attack is the simplest thing to do right now. That should be a mistake. Now I feel like there has to be a way to trade queens. Of course, I can't simply go here. Let's just advance my pawns, I guess. And dissolve a little bit of the complication over here. Keep advancing my pawns. Dissolve the complication here a bit more. And now I can just trade queens and easily win this game. Fair enough. There's absolutely no issues now, I suppose. Yeah, so now this is a very nice structure. The reason I say that is because my bishop is defended by the pawn is defended by the bishop. This pawn is defended by the bishop, so even if I lose a pawn in this trade, at the end of the day I'll be up 2 pawns, and in a king and pawn game that is almost always winning. Here I can dissolve my doubled pawn. There's lots of things that I can do. I think I'm just going to push this pawn for a while, and the knight is sacrificed. I mean, I don't blame Hikaru. And now what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna keep this where my pawn and my bishop defend each other, and now I can just, even at the cost of a pawn over here, I can create a passed pawn. And when the king tries to stop that pawn and ventures far away, now it has no way to come back and stop this pawn from queening. And now I can make a queen with check. And now I have to make sure that I don't stalemate my opponent. So I can go here. I can go here. I can go here and push all the way back. And now I'm just going to lose my bishop so that I don't complicate the position. I don't have to worry about stalemate a bit more than I usually do. And now this very common L pattern to drive the king to a corner, and every time the L is maintained by the opponent's king, you just bring your king closer. And now once the king hits one of the sides of the board, you just cut the king off. You bring your king closer slowly, and now wherever the king moves, this is going to be made. And that is how we beat all of the zombie bots in chess.com. I'll see you in the next one.